are going to be talking about all the plants we're going to have at the plant sale Saturday. I'm sorry, this kind of sounds like a plug, but it's really not. I just want you to know that for once, when we tell you that these are great plants to plant, we can say, and you can get them here. Because most of the time it's like, well, they're not available around here, but every plant that we're going to talk about will be available and has been grown by a master gardener. So one of the master gardeners said we should have a new motto saying, we grew these and you can too. So they really are very easy to grow plants. Some of them may have specific site requirements, which we'll talk about. So you'll know that if you have a very dry site, some of them won't work. If you have a very wet site, some of them won't work. But that's what we're here for, is to educate you about the plant that's going to work for you. So many of you know about the, okay. Yeah. My clicker's not working. So you guys, some of you know about the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program by okay, we're a little frozen at the moment, but we can still talk about Florida Friendly Landscape Program. It's a program by the University of Florida to help homeowners find the best plants for their sites that are not going to harm the environment either. Thank you. Yep, got it. We want plants that are going to help wildlife, reduce water needs, reduce fertilizer needs, and still look pretty. Because a lot of people think that if you have a Florida friendly landscape, it's going to be a weed patch or something unattractive. But the first principle is right plant, right place. So if you have the right plant for your garden and your environment, it can be as beautiful as any home and garden landscape by professionals garden. You just have to know what will do well in your environment. And that if you have the right plant in the right place, all of these other things fall pretty much into place, because you water more efficiently when the plants need less water. You need less fertilizer, you know how to mulch. So all of these things will come into play. The purpose of wildflowers is, we all know the pollinators are in decline, and without the pollinators, we're going to be in trouble. Plus, we enjoy them in our garden. We want to have them in our garden, and we want to have the pretty flowers that they like. But if you buy cultivars and hybrids that have no nectar, or our insects have not evolved to feed on those certain flowers, then your pretty garden's doing no good. So Doug Tallamy, who's a pretty well-known entomologist, who has studied he studied a lot of things about insects, but one of the things he's studying is how many caterpillars it takes for a chickadee to raise a baby. And it's so much. I should have written down the number, but it's an astronomical amount of caterpillars. Well, where are these caterpillars coming from? If we have our yards sprayed with pesticides and we don't plant native plants, the chickadees and all the other, almost all birds feed their young insects. Even if they are seed eaters, they feed their young insects. So we can't just have a pretty yard. We need to have one that does all of these other things. And a lot of us have shady sites. It's like, well, how can I support pollinators in shady sites? Well, here we go. Beautyberry's a great pollinator plant. And I'm going to pass around some of these plants. I don't know. You guys online are not going to be able to see these, but they're little tiny pinkish lavender flowers. This is the beautyberry flower. It's not bothering me. It doesn't do a lot for us. I mean, it's there, but it's not like we walk by and go, wow, look at those beautiful flowers. The berries in the fall, we do that. But I want to pass this around because in the spring, this is one of the early pollinator plants. To show, not right now. Okay, and we've got an exciting thing. We have a caterpillar to show you on one of the passion vines too. So, well, we're getting to the passion vine later. Right now, we're talking about the beautyberry, which is great in the shade. Oh yes, that caterpillar is munching away. The beautyberry is great in the shade. It's native. It is almost foolproof. I don't know. And if you guys have questions about these specific plants as we go through, feel free to ask them, and we'll try to answer any other questions at the end of the program. But beautyberry will reseed around. I can't think of a negative thing to say. It does go dormant in the winter. So if you're doing a mixed hedgerow, make sure you have some evergreen things in there with it so that it's the bare stems don't bother you in your garden. Spider lilies. I'm probably going to say this is my favorite plant 15 times before this is over, but I think every plant on this slide is in my garden. So they're all my favorite plants. And this spider lily is a shade plant. It's a native. It makes a beautiful 3-foot tall clump. It will crowd out most weeds. It has these nice strappy arching leaves, and then it has these beautiful flowers. And it also can handle some salt. So along the marshes or the river, it won't do well on the beach because it needs shade. But any other salt environment, and many of us have that, these things do great. You put them in the ground, they start multiplying. The next thing you know, you have a clump 6 feet in diameter, and you don't have to do anything with it. And if you want to divide it and move it around, it's easy to dig up the bulbs and move. If I had one shrub, this would be it. The firebush attracts all the pollinators. The hummingbirds love it. For some reason, the zebra longwings, which we are very fond of here, love this more than any other plant in my garden. And so do other butterflies, but the zebra longwings are a little more secretive than some of the other butterflies. They're not bashful when they're on this plant. It will freeze back when you have 23 degrees. And when it freezes back, it freezes all the way to the ground. So you just whack it off at ground level, and mine's already this tall. They're also cultivars that have smaller leaves and more orangish flowers. Air conditioning just kicked on, so I'm going to talk louder. The native one, you know, is good. If you want natives, you really need to pay attention that it's the native cultivar, which is more red than the one in this picture. This one looks like the dwarf cultivar, and I can tell you it's dwarf only because the leaves are smaller. It still will get 5 or 6 feet tall. I'm going through these pretty quickly, so if you have any questions, just yell. St. John's wort is a really pretty native. There are many, many species of St. John's wort. They flower from summer to fall. Really, I mean, nothing. You can't imagine anything prettier in your garden than this. It's well behaved. It doesn't spread all over the place. It doesn't get too big. Some of our natives are a little robust, and they'll take up a little more space than you had planned for them to take up in the garden. This one's very well behaved. And remember, if I go through these too fast and there's something on the slide that you didn't get, you can always go to the recording to get the information, or to the University of Florida site. So anise is an evergreen shrub. It's really not grown for the flowers, although I'll show you this. Illicium parvifolum is the one I'm going to pass around. The Florida anise is the one with the big red flowers. I have planted that, but it's never bloomed for me. So that's the flower. But that's not why you grow it. You grow it because it has these beautiful evergreen leaves, and crush the leaf or tear it, It smells like licorice. So, and it makes a great screen. You can trim it back to keep it a certain height. And it grows in deep shade. It will grow in sun, but if you put it in too much sun, it will start turning yellow, and it also needs more moisture if you have it in a lot of sun. So it's great for deep shade. This little guy can grow in sun or shade, a wet ditch or a dry field. It is not picky. It's reseeds by shooting its seeds all over. So sometimes it'll pop up somewhere else in your garden rather than where you put it. But they're easy to transplant and move into a spot that you like. And it's a nice blue to light purple color, which sometimes it's hard. People say blue's hard to find in the garden, but I don't think that's true because we have a lot of blue flowers. However, do not plant the Mexican petunia, which is the bottom one. It is a class 1 invasive. It is not supposed to be sold, but it is still sold. There are some supposedly sterile cultivars out there. In my experience, they still spread. So be very, very careful with any of the non-native Ruellias. There are some cultivars. There's a red one called Ruellia Raging Cajun, Ruellia elegans. We'll have that at the sale one. No. Okay, we might not have that one, but there is a red one that's not invasive. It's a cultivar, but these purple Mexican tropical petunias, do not plant them. The little blue natives are great, but the tall purple ones that have been sold and people hate themselves when they get them in their garden because you cannot get rid of them. They just spread like crazy, and then they spread into the wild areas and crowd out native plants too. Ironweed's a great pollinator plant. It's very tall. You can trim it back to about midsummer to keep it a little bit lower, but really needs to be in the back of a garden. It needs some sun to bloom, but it can take a lot of shade. Each one of those little flowers, little purple flowers, is a separate flower, and then there's big clusters of them. So the pollinators love that because they don't have to go far to get a lot of food. We don't have one of theirs. They're not quite in flower yet, although there were buds on my plant, so I told it to hurry up and bloom, but it didn't. So, yes.
Why do you cut it back early summer?
Well, that's why she asked, why do you cut it back in early summer? It's a late summer bloomer. So as long as you don't cut it back too late, you're not cutting the blooms off. But you can tell, I mean, it's really not supposed to bloom in spring, even though I talked to it and asked it to, and it's not supposed to. But I don't know if you guys have noticed in your gardens, but the flower blooming schedule is totally off. I don't know if it's hurricanes, climate change, what, but things are not blooming when they used to. So if it has blooms on it, buds on it, don't cut it back, obviously. And angel wing begonia is usually treated as a house plant in our zone. There are some cold hardy ones. How many different species of this are we going to have? Like 2 or 3, right? Okay, we're going to have we're going to have several species of this at the plant sale. Most people do maybe put it in a pot in your shade garden and then bring it in during the winter, just to be sure. I had one that lasted several winters and then it didn't. So this guy, though, he's very, very hardy. This is a ground orchid. It's a true orchid. It's blooms in the spring. I've never had mine bloom much past the spring. It usually does one flush in the spring and then it's just foliage the rest of the summer. But mine hasn't gotten 2 feet tall, but it, around 15, 18 inches, and it's this nice grass-like foliage, wide grass-like foliage the rest of the year. And when it blooms in the spring, it's really special. So put it someplace close to, that you'll see, you know, that you'll walk by one day and go, oh, look at that. Because it is easy for it to get lost since it's not very big. It's a great front of the border plant in the shade. The little white soldiers, grab one of them. To me, this is one of the best hosta replacements for Florida. No, it doesn't have the big leaves like hostas up north do, but it does have a lot of pattern on the leaves, and then it gets these spiky white flowers that, and that's why it's called little white soldiers. Usually they're standing up in a row. These are kind of floppy because they're at the end of their blooming stage. They can take most conditions. They can take a pretty good amount of sunlight. I have some that get late afternoon. They get mostly shade, but they get late afternoon, hot sun, and they seem to do okay. My peacock ginger that's in the same area wilts like crazy when the afternoon sun hits it. But this guy's, he's drought tolerant, he's easy to grow, he's great substitute for hostas, and we'll have plenty of them at the sale too. Oh, they spread very well. So once you, they make a great ground cover because they will spread and cover a pretty good area. Fire spike is a favorite of the hummingbirds. If you get some fire spike, put it somewhere where you can see it while you're drinking your coffee in the morning, because guarantee you the hummingbirds will be visiting it. It does go dormant in the winter. You just cut it back after it gets hit by the frost. And it blooms late summer, usually. It has very nice foliage, even without the flowers. The foliage is very striking. It will grow in the sun, but you need, it's kind of, the leaves are a little bit succulent, and it will grow in the sun, but it needs a lot more water, and it starts, to me, it looks much greener and happier if it gets some shade. Toad lily is a new one for me. I think I got that from another master gardener, and it does have small flowers, but they're so interesting. The way they'll send out spikes and they'll bloom between the leaves, and it's very shade tolerant. So far, so good. I understand it's easy to propagate. Do you propagate by cuttings, seeds, just reseeds? It just grows on its own. Okay. It spreads apparently, and you can divide it, which is my favorite way to propagate because I'm terrible at seeds and cuttings. So if I can divide a plant, I'm happy with it. So we'll start talking about some sun plants. I did have a snow square stem bloom, but I didn't bring it. But we'll show you what the foliage looks like. It's a tough plant. It even looks tough. It's got kind of hairy leaves, and it's got a square stem. It's very hard to kill. It will seed around, but it's easy to move or weed or whatever. And it is one of the top pollinator plants, according to most of the native sites. I think it likes a lot of sun, but in my garden, it doesn't get all day sun because I just don't have all day sun anywhere. So, and it still blooms and the pollinators visit it. Which was the last one? Yeah, it's 2 feet wide by 6 feet tall. But you can prune it, you can clip it back at a node and keep it smaller. So I have one in a pot right now, and it's not a real big pot because I had to move it from where it reseeded itself. And I'm keeping it cut back so that I want to keep it in that pot. I think it's going to outgrow it by the end of the summer, but for now it's happy. So if, like the ironweed, if you need to prune it back a little bit, just You'll have to cut some blooms off of this one because it blooms constantly. So my problem is I go out to cut it back and there's a bee on it, and I'll go back and cut it back later, but it won't mind. There'll be other flowers the bee can get on. So this one, as you can see, all of these in the middle here are native salvias, and it comes in pink, white, and red naturally. It does not always come back true from seed, but it reseeds very well. Thank you, Dana. It blooms until frost, and I had some that were probably 4 or 5 years old, and some of them grew up through shrubs to 6 feet tall, but normally they stay low. And if you want to keep them low, which I am doing my best to do in some of my gardens, I want them to just play well with others. So I'm trying to keep them back to 18 or 24 inches. So every time they go to seed, I'll cut them back. Problem with that is the birds love the salvia seeds, and the little chickadees, even the big cardinals, get up on the little stem and they're trying to get the seeds out, and you'll go out and there'll be a lot of broken seed heads because cardinals are just too big for those. And then they get on the ground and eat it after they, and then it reseeds around too, and you get more plants. So, you know, it is an annual, but here, as long as we don't get a really hard freeze, like I said, some of mine were 4 or 5 years old. A lot of them didn't die back in the 23 degrees either. Some of them did. And what I've found is that when they get too old, they're kind of woody, and they're a little more susceptible to little fuzzy white insect, mealybugs. So you might want to clear out some of the older ones, but also go around. If all of a sudden your salvia starts looking peaked, you know, maybe a little brown on the leaves, or it just doesn't look as happy, look up under the leaves. You won't see this mealybug unless you scout for it. It's down on the stems or up under the leaves, and you have to turn over the leaves to find it. And when you do, if you take a spray from your hose, you know, not turn your spray nozzle on, you can knock those off and they'll come back. I also think that they are attacked mostly when they're drought stressed, because insects usually attack plants when they are stressed. They you know, most of the time the plants can fend them off, but if they're drought stressed, they can handle drought, but they do get stressed, and then you need to give them a little extra. And I've never sprayed them with insecticidal soap or any kind of insecticides. And usually, as long as I stay on top of it, I can keep them clean from the little white critters. And that's the only problem, other than them getting taller than I want in the space that I want. They're a perfect plant in my book. And we're going to talk about several different varieties of sages. The next two we're going to talk about are shade, because we're lumping all the salvias together. This one is a native woodland plant, and it's a great grass replacement for shady areas where you can't get grass to grow anyway. It puts up these beautiful blue flowers in the spring, and once they go to seed, you can mow it, and it's just a nice little crown of leaves right at the ground. And so you can mow over it all summer and it'll still be there because it's lower than the grass would be. And it reseeds, and it'll make a great ground cover, whether you want it as a lawn replacement or in your garden. And it, like most salvias, it reseeds and propagates fairly easily. This is another one that likes shade. We've got a couple of those. This is one you might not be as familiar with. It's a little ground cover, and it smells like sage. You can recognize it from its smell, but it has little tiny blue flowers, very dainty. It'd be really pretty in a little fairy garden. The one caution about this is it spreads really, really well. So I would advise that you put it somewhere where it's contained by a driveway or a sidewalk or something, unless you just want a ground cover of this. It naturally grows along riverbeds where it's moist and shady. So that's the kind of environment that it likes. I have it growing under my little water fountain for the birds, and it stays low so you can still see the fountain, but it covers the ground around the fountain. So it's works very well. The frost did knock it back this year. That's extreme frost, but it's coming back strong. The blue sage is a non-native species. We're going to have several different species of this, the Garaneticas, in the plant sale. They get beautiful. Oh, thank you. I knew we had one. Beautiful blue flowers. You got a good picture. All the sages do smell. They smell like sage, so you can pretty much smell the leaf and say, oh yeah, that's in the sage family. Salvia family, not sage. It's not the same as the spice sage. Sometimes people think it is, but it's not. It says average water needs. Again, don't let it get too stressed by drought. This one's a really big, bushy salvia. And it can get very tall, and I've seen it. It's just beautiful. It's like 5 feet tall and 5 feet wide and covered in yellow blooms. It's kind of our replacement for forsythia, because most of our county you can't grow forsythia very well. The only difference is it blooms late in the year and forsythia blooms in the spring. But it kind of gives you that same look, kind of an arching, really pretty yellow flowers. But it's much more heat and drought tolerant than forsythia. We also have a cultivar called Belize, which we got years ago from the Jacksonville Zoo. They were kind enough to give us cuttings, and we've been growing it ever since. Oh, let me show you that. Okay, so here's the salvia. Here's our native salvia. And here's the salvia Belize. This salvia, actually I lied, it does not smell like sage. And you can tell it has more succulent leaves than the native or the Garaneticas. And the flowers are a little bit bigger. But the hummingbirds like it probably as much, if not more, than any of the other salvias. And it's very easy to grow. You can grow it from cuttings. It hasn't seeded a whole lot in my yard, but even I can grow it from cuttings. I don't think I've got many divisions off of it either. Have you? Okay. Yeah, we'll have a couple at the sale. So some more ground covers. Frog fruit. Frog fruit today. I don't think we have a frog fruit, but it's a great lawn replacement in the sun. I've also seen it sheared with a weed eater, more like they do the Asiatic jasmine. So it's maybe 8 inches tall, and they just shear it with a weed eater. I have it and I just mow it. Now, the rabbits like it. Of course, the rabbits like almost everything I grow, especially this year when there's a lot of babies. But I watched a baby eating a dollar weed this morning, so I said, good, go for it. Yes.
Is this something that might slip into an HOA?
Well, I can tell you that in the villages down in Central Florida, which is a very, very strict HOA, their native plant society, there's one guy, you might want to look him up online. His name is Steve Turnipseed. As odd as that sounds, he is or was the president of the Native Plant Society down there, and he has no grass. That's where I saw this more like the Asiatic jasmine. So it might take some work, but if they can do it down there, and they can tell you how they did it, they can give you advice on how to approach the HOA and so forth.
I had it at my house and it got into my flower beds, started crawling up over all my flowers, and I got to the point where I was practically losing all of my plants.
So,
I had to give it back to, like, so it's been fantastic in the lawn, but don't think you're gonna grow it in between your plants. It's
Yeah.
not better.
so she's saying kind of like the river sage, either if you're growing it as a ground cover, you need to contain it because it's going to grow into your beds, or it can grow through your lawn and not bother your grass. If you have what we call a freedom lawn where you aren't, it's not a monoculture and you let a few, weeds pop up, it's fine because when you mow it, you hardly see it's there. So
My
it's,
cousin has it all. It's great because it applies flowers, and so in this huge lawn he has, he's got that, and his mower guy wants to, I can take care of those over there.
yeah,
So-
yeah. She says her neighbor has it in the lawn, and so the little butterflies find it, and the lawn people want to spray it and get rid of it for him, and he's saying no, thank you. But these little flowers, if you've never seen them, the little purple part in the bottom picture that you might be able to see, that has little white petals around it, but the purple part's about the size of a match head, and you might hear it called match head plant sometimes too, but and a lot of times you'll see it has little holes in the leaves, and it is the larval food plant for little tiny butterflies that are about an inch. So it's a kind of place that children would see these butterflies because they're closer to the ground. We might not ever notice them, but walking, if they're, and it can take some traffic. So, if a child was walking through it, they might see lots of little butterflies on them that we would always miss. So, but just be aware of how it grows, that it's aggressive. I don't want to tell too many stories on my husband, but we did tear a bunch of this out to put sod in, which I knew wouldn't work where it was. And when the grass died, he said, "You know what we should put in there?" I said, "What?" And then he said, "Frog fruit." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I know it'll work," because it was there before we ever planted anything. So, I didn't say that part out. So, twin flower is really, thank you, Sarah Master Gardner, for sharing this with me. I don't know if you can see the flowers online. It has little blue flowers. There's two kinds we're going to talk about, two species. Pass that one around. That one's about 8 inches tall, maybe 6 inches tall. Mine at my house stays about 3 inches tall, and I'm kind of wondering if the rabbits prune it. I don't think they do, but they might, because mine never gets as tall as this one. This one's been in the shade, so that may be why it's taller, and the one that I have in the ground is in more sun, and it blooms almost constantly. One of our master gardeners said she prunes hers or it gets leggy, and that's fine. It's not going to, that's why I think if the rabbits are pruning it, they're not really doing any harm, because it probably likes to be pruned a little bit. I've never heard of anybody using that as a lawn replacement and mowing it, but it might, you could maybe weed eat it if you were using it. I had 3 little cuttings from my friend, and it's about a 4-foot square patch right now, and it's just doing great. And then there's the one that likes a little bit more moisture. These flowers are a little bit smaller. To me, it's hard to tell the two types apart. I mean, I know some of the native people would say, "Oh, well, that's obviously such and such," but to me, they look a lot alike. Coral bean's a really interesting shrub. It has these beautiful flowers in the spring, which the hummingbirds really, really like. And then in the fall, it has seed pods that are very similar in color and about the same size. So you get 2 seasons of color with it, and these very interesting little strangely shaped leaves. It's a native. It's very easy to grow. If given the space, it will get very large. Mine is in a morning sun hedgerow, and it actually grows up through a tree, kind of binds up through the tree because it doesn't get enough sun to be real bushy. So it just crawls up through the tree and likes that too. And it is salt tolerant. Dune sunflower is very salt tolerant. I'm sure you've seen it on the beach. Dune sunflower and the gaillardia grow all along the beach. And once they're established, they can take the harsh conditions of the beach. They don't like being inundated with salt water. The couple of the hurricanes came up over the seawall, and all of my Dune sunflower died, but it came back from seeds very shortly. When Reflections of Nature was still next to ACE, I ran down there and said, "Oh my gosh, my sunflower died, I need more." So she said, "Well, I have 3." So I planted them. Before they grew, the seedlings were coming up and surpassing the new ones. So they're going to come back from whatever natural event occurs. And it drought tolerant. And they're really pretty, I think, in combination with the gaillardia. The two flowers have similar forms, but different colors, and makes a really pretty combination. I had this great idea. I was going to do this demonstration salt tolerant garden. So it was about 40 feet long and 8 feet wide. So I put 3 Dune sunflowers and a bunch of other salt tolerant perennials. And I thought, great, I'll be able to show everybody what's salt tolerant. Well, by the end of the summer, I had a Dune sunflower garden, period. Yeah, which was fine, but so I would recommend it first, and then if you want something else, put it somewhere else. Coral honeysuckle, can't say enough good about this. It is a beautiful vine. I did have one die in a hurricane. I don't know if it got some salt spray or why. It may have just been tired anyway. But other than that, I've planted 5 or 6 others, and they're all fine. Beautiful flowers. Hummingbirds love it. Butterflies love it. Put it somewhere where you can appreciate watching the critters on it. So here's one of our more aggressive little guys. We don't have any of them today, do we? It is an excellent pollinator plant. Just be prepared to pull out some seedlings, because it's going to, unless you want just a Monarda garden, and that's fine, but it will become just like the Dune sunflower. You can plant this whole beautiful garden, and it's all going to be Monarda if you don't remove the seedlings. But that's well worth the trouble for the benefit that it gives to the pollinators. And the flowers themselves are gorgeous too. You can see that those are the flowers right there. This part, the showy part, are bracts, and sometimes they're much more purple than that. Again, it's just it's not a different plant. It's just the genetics of that particular plant or the environment that the plant's grown in. But for some reason, some of them are really purple. It's kind of like the Ruellia and the spiderwort. Sometimes you'll have a really purple spiderwort, and sometimes it'll be a pale blue spiderwort. So it's the same plant, it's the same species, but the genetics are slightly different. And we'll have a lot of this at the plant sale, and it is a native. The grasses are great to add into a pollinator garden or a wildlife garden. It gives shelter for rabbits and other little critters. Insects will hide in them. Bees will, sleep in them. And they also hold up some of your floppier wildflowers. Because some of the wildflowers are a little bit floppy and don't look their best, but if you plant them in close to the muley grass or some of these other grasses, they'll kind of hold each other up. And it's really pretty when they combine themselves like that. No garden planter could do better. And then the other, we're going to have a Fakahatchee grass, a dwarf Fakahatchee, which we are going to be planting a lot of focaccia around this building eventually. They should be coming in a couple of weeks, so you'll be able to see what they look like. For a building like this, that's not the most attractive thing and kind of commercial looking, the upright growth of the grass kind of softens it a little bit and really makes it, looks really nice with this kind of building. But it's also pretty if you add it into your perennial garden. Simpson stalker is a great native plant. It is in full bloom right now. It has a fragrance, which some people love, and my neighbor said smelled terrible. So I'm still undecided. I think I like it, but it's covered with pollinators. And then in the fall, you get the red berries that feed the birds and raccoons and other critters. It can be really big. I just read that they're same species, but there are two forms that appear, same genetics, but one will get taller and one's more rounded, like in this bottom picture. And I do have that in my garden. I have one that's really round and kind of sprawly like that. And then I have one that's like a kind of like a holly, you know, kind of straight and tall. I thought it was because one was in the sun and one was in the shade, but maybe there is a genetic difference. Same species, just different genetic makeup. So anyway, it's salt tolerant, great plant all around. And we will have, well, like I said, we're gonna have all of these at the sale. Passion flower. You guys probably can't see. Where are you? There he is. Okay. Shoot. Really hard to get him online, but there he is. He's a little Gulf fritillary caterpillar that is munching away on this Passiflora insects. Also, the zebra longwing butterfly uses that, and some of the others like, tell me, Jenny, the Julias and the other fritillaries. Okay, Jenny, our butterfly. Okay. She says there are other butterflies that feed on it, but they are really mostly further south than us. So the Gulf fritillaries and the zebra longwings are the ones that we get here. The zebra longwings prefer to lay their eggs on it in the shade, and the fritillaries in the sun. And they both, caterpillars both eat the leaves, and people get upset about that, but they come back really fast. If you have a small one, they may damage it to the point where it doesn't come back, but if it has any size at all, it will recover it. They evolved together for that plant to feed that butterfly, so it usually recovers very well. We will have the incense. We are propagating the incarnata, which is the true native, but we're not quite ready for them to be sold yet. Cinnas, or cassias, as most people know them, feed the sulfur butterflies. And the interesting thing about this plant is if the caterpillar feeds on the green leaves, it will be a green caterpillar. If they feed on the yellow flowers, it will be a yellow caterpillar. So they're similar in appearance. I think they have like a little greenish band around them. I haven't looked at one recently, but they're yellow and green based on what they are eating. Did anybody's cassia survive the 23 degrees? Okay. All right. So we have some cassias that survive. So when the Cinnamon bicapsularis is supposed to be in our zone, and we will have a lot of those at the sale. Some of these cinnas are not as cold hardy. So when you buy a cinna, make sure that it is appropriate for this zone. or you treat it as an annual. It makes a really stunning show when it's in full bloom. Same thing with goldenrod. There are lots and lots of species. Some of them get very, very tall. Some of them are only a foot or 2 feet. They don't take up a lot of space, but they do spread by seed, and you may need to remove them if they're taking up more than what you want. A few of them spread by runners too. So be aware of that if that's something that you don't want to make a clump or a very large clump. And they're easy to remove, so it's not like you're chopping down a tree. You're just digging up with the plants. Carolina aster is, if you've ever been canoeing or kayaking on Lofton Creek in December, there's one corner you go around and there's this huge Carolina aster cascading down the bank into the water. It was the most stunning sight I've ever seen. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get one growing on the pond here and you'll be able to see it, but you can grow it on a trellis. Most people in the garden will be growing it on a trellis because you don't have beautiful ponds, except for some of you have ponds to cascade it into. It likes a little bit of moisture, although it probably will survive fine in a drier area. It's just happier with a little bit of moisture. And all of the asters are great pollinator plants. Like the Elliott aster, which 4 feet tall. I wish mine would stay 4 feet tall. It's taller than me. But what a stunning display in the late summer, early fall, when you get this giant plant with these beautiful purple flowers that are covered with pollinators. It's a very tough plant. It doesn't have special needs like some of them. You stick it somewhere, it's going to grow and give you babies. Now, Fort Blue Curls, it's a well-behaved little plant, except that it reseeds prolifically. But it makes a nice little shrub, like in the bottom picture, and it's very airy. And the flowers are very small and airy, but there's hundreds of them on there. And other plants can grow up through it and not get eaten by the rabbits because they're a little protected by this. For some reason, they don't eat these, which is good. But I have more of these, so I wish I'd eat a few of them. But they're easy to transplant, really, really sweet little plants, great pollinator. It says it's fragrant, but I've never noticed that. But there's the Fakahatchee grass. Okay. It's kind of a new thing that with people using grasses for design. Wildlife is a great example for grasses, and the zoo. And more people are incorporating them into their wildflower meadows and their perennial borders because they do give it some structure and a different appearance than the wildflowers do. So I would highly recommend the dwarf Fakahatchee grass. But the other one gets very tall, but the dwarf stays under about 3 feet until it sends up a bloom spike of 1 or 2 feet. It is in bloom right now. And the blooms are a conversation piece. They're not really like you are overwhelmed by the beauty of the bloom. It's just interesting. It's different. And of course, amaryllis, we're going to have tons of amaryllis. That is one of the plants you can stick almost anywhere. It can take some shade, it can take sun, it will self-propagate, so you'll have many, you can fill a whole garden bed with it if you wanted to. I have an elderly neighbor that she grows pots of amaryllis. That's all she can do now, but she has all these beautiful amaryllis that make her very happy when they're in bloom. And they're hard to do anything harmful to. You can grow them from seed, but usually when they go to seed, you should cut or before they go to seed, you should cut the flower head off so that the energy goes into the bulb instead of making seed, unless you're just into growing things from seed, which some people consider a challenge and fun. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, ma'am. Once the flowers fade, just cut the stalk back to the base, and because if you don't, it will form seeds, which, you know, we have a patch in our neighborhood that was sort of wild. It was an abandoned lot, and it went to seed, and there must have been 100 plants, and some of them grew from the bulbs because they do propagate. The bulb sends off little bulblets and propagate that way, but I'm sure that some of them propagated from the seed too. So it's easy to do. It just takes a little while for them to bloom once you grow them that way. Interesting thing about most bulbs, unless they're crowded, if you've got a bunch and they're pushing each other up out of the ground, which they will do, bulbs move. They'll go deeper, or I don't know how they do it. I just have read this. I mean, I don't doubt anything that plants can do anything, but you know, it's hard to believe. But I know that I dug up a bed of daffodils, that the little jonquils that are hardy, can take the heat here. They were 2 feet down in the ground, and they still bloomed every year, put up, because they were in about a 4 foot by 2 foot bed, and they couldn't go anywhere else, so they just went down. However, they will crowd each other out. The rain lilies will do that. All of a sudden, you'll walk out and you'll say, well, why is this bulb laying on its side? Well, it just got crowded out, and the other bulbs, you know, not on purpose, but they just kind of threw that one out. So if it gets to that point, you need to divide them. But they're very cold tolerant. They do go dormant in the winter, but if they're not crowded, they will be fine. You know, I do in the ground. Yes, yes. Now, if you force them for the winter, they might not bloom this coming. Well, they won't bloom. They will not have bloomed in this past spring. It'll be next year before they bloom. The other thing when you're transplanting bulbs is never let the sun touch them, because it can kill the flower bud in the bulb. So try to do it on a shady day and transplant them as soon as you can. Some bulbs aren't as picky, but daffodils apparently are very picky. And I have noticed that I've transplanted some bulbs that didn't bloom the next year and should have, and that could have been I'm trying to think what. Anyway, the cold tolerant bulbs, other than crowding each other out, they're pretty good. If I planted it in the ground, I would plant it. I think they recommend right to the top of the bulb. Is that right? To the top of the bulb here. Now, other places it's different, but here the amaryllis can be planted to the top of the bulb. And then if it wants to go a little deeper, it'll just go. So, I mean, and let me know if you see them moving around in your garden, because it sure seems to be true. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That's a really pretty little shrub. The flower, you'll have all 3 colors of the flowers at the same time, even though they start out purple and then lighten to lilac and then to white. But it'll be covered in the 3 colors of flowers. It says it's 3 to 8 feet tall, and my neighbor, the amaryllis lady, has one that's been in the ground a long time, and it's probably easily 10 feet tall. And people stop on the street when it's in bloom. It's just amazing, and it does have a fragrance, which I don't find offensive. Mine are grown in more shade. Hers is in full sun, so maybe full sun is the solution to having it grow like hers grows. But easy to grow, really easy to grow. It also is hard to get rid of. I have one that I've got too much shade where it was, and so I dug it up and moved it somewhere else. Well, next year another plant came up where I dug it up, and I dug that one up and moved it somewhere else. So I don't know if they're coming up from seeds or from pieces of root or what, but yeah, I mean, they're easy to pull up, so it's not a problem, but if it likes a place, I guess it's just going to stay there. Crinum lilies are a really fun plant. We have a lot of native crinums, and we also have some non-natives like this Asiaticum variegatum. We'll have both kinds at the plant sale. They're the same plant except one's variegated. I'm trying to move this touch screen. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, they bloom, they have pretty flowers, but this one, the variegated, is obviously grown for its foliage. And once they're established, they have low water needs. They can take some shade. They make a nice clump. They do put out pups, as you can see in this bottom picture, but they don't, you know, take off and take up your whole garden. Okay. Shrimp plant. The one thing about shrimp plant is it likes rich organic soil. It'll do fine in sand, which most of us have, but if you can give it a little bit of humus, it will be even happier, and it likes a little more moisture, but again, it will survive without it. The hummingbirds do like this plant, and it can get leggy. Pruning it regularly helps that legginess. Night blooming cereus is one of those conversation pieces if you're either a late night or an early morning person, because it's a night bloomer. It doesn't bloom till about 10 o'clock at night, and it's by the time the sun hits it the next morning, it's closing up. If you've got it in a shady spot, you might be able to have your 9 o'clock coffee and still see it. Plant it in a container for two reasons. One, it's considered invasive in southern Florida, and as climate changes, it could become invasive up here. And it's much, much prettier in a pot because it wants to cascade, and that way it can cascade and look nice. But put it in a big pot, so it does get large, but you can divide it and keep it in smaller pots. Oh, and my amaryllis neighbor has those in pots all around her garden and did not bring them in the 23-degree weather, and they are just fine. Here's our little rain lily. This is the non-native one. The native one is white. We'll have both native and non-native at sale. The interesting thing about these guys is they bloom 5 days after it rains, roughly. So if you get a thunderstorm, it might be a little early for them to be blooming right now, but 5 days after a thunderstorm, you'll walk out in your bed, and they spread like this too. They'll make a full bed just like the amaryllis. They'll propagate as far as they can. Okay, I'm going to leave this up for a minute. These are some great plant reference books. Are there any general questions or any questions about plants that we'll have at the sale that we didn't talk about? Because we're going to have, probably 4 or 5 times the number of different plants than we talked about today. So if you didn't see it on this slide and you want to know if it's there, you can ask me. Check chat. Let's see. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Right. 4 hours is pretty much full sun here. Anything 4 hours plus, unless it's, I mean, a cactus might need more than 4 or 5 hours of sun, but especially if it's afternoon sun. The best is, I'm sorry. Yes, east exposure is the easiest for plants, especially plants that like sun. Even plants that don't like sun, the morning sun is less hard on the plants. So if you can give them 4 or 5 hours of morning sun, they're probably going to be very happy, even if they're partial shade plants. So, and there are some things that really need deep shade. But so, what part of the country did you come from? North Carolina. Okay. So we can grow a lot of things that you grew in North Carolina here, but you do have to, like oak leaf hydrangeas, they don't want any sun here. They want shade, or maybe a couple of hours of morning sun. She's asking about west sun exposure, so they don't really get sun if they're shaded by your house. Usually the west side of your house is hot, even if it gets shade. So again, it depends on the plant. That's why we sometimes laugh that we keep our plants on wheels, because we move them a lot until we find out where they're happy. Usually if they get shade, they'll be okay. And depending on their moisture requirements, you know, the Dune sunflower can take full all day sun. I saw in South Fletcher where it gets no shade, and it gets west sun at my house and loves it. It like the muley grass, if it's crowded and gets too wet, will kind of rot out at the crown. So that's one of the things you need to worry about with beach type flowers. They don't want to be real soggy. But morning sun is the best for almost everything, for roses and most perennials. Of course, your shrubs and trees can take some of them. Some of them are understory trees, like dogwoods and redbuds are more understory, so they want more shade. Yeah, and please come to our classes, because you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. So you can grow wonderful things here, but it is different. So we need to help you figure out which, like pansies, we can grow them in a few months of the winter here, like you can in North Carolina, but by May they're toast. So usually by April. So. And there are a lot of things that we consider summer annuals in other parts of the country. It's like snapdragons and alyssum, and that we plant in the winter here. So it's not exactly flip seasons, but some things are. Any other questions? Well, thank you, everybody. We hope to see you. All of these ladies with the lanyards on have worked really hard to make this a very great sale for you guys, and we hope to see you there. We'll have plenty of plants, so don't worry if you're not here right at 9 o'clock. We should still have plenty at 10 and 11. So thank you. Selling these plants.